So as we look at Psalm 78, verses 3 through 8, I just want to point out a couple of things. Verse number 8, we will not hide them from their descendants. We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generation. We will tell them about Jesus, their praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power and the wonders he has done. Verse 5, he decreed statutes for Jacob and established the law in Israel, which he commanded our descendants to teach their children, Verse 6, so the next generation would know them, even the children yet to be born, and they in turn would tell their children. Tell, teach, and to minister the next generation. So as we think about ministry, ministry is most impactful when life is happening, right? When we see that young folk or that young student struggling and they're going through something, ministry then comes alive. It's when we have the opportunity to share our lives, share our stories, and to really testify of his goodness. We can tell about Jesus all day. We can teach the word of the Lord, but we need to minister. It touched my heart to see the vision and the strategy behind NXT, because that's what it's all about. It's about sharing of his goodness, opening up our hearts and our minds to really minister. Nobody's perfect, and our young people need to see that we are broken too. And it's only through the love of Jesus, and it's only through the goodness of his work in our own lives that we are able to testify and walk and be leaders today. And they need to see that. And I just want to point out, this leadership thing is not easy. But I will tell you that we have no impact as leaders at the end of the day if we're not able to influence. And that's one of my biggest points. If we don't have the ability to influence these young people as leaders, then we really don't have the true impact. So Darnell's going to talk about what does it really look like to have influence of leadership.
So when it comes to influence, I'm just going to go a couple of points into it. You have to consistently walk the walk. I'm in education, I'm an educator. And a lot of times in ministry and professional work, and it's been said many times here before, students can see right through the fake facade. If you are just at church checking off a box, if you're just volunteering because it's the right thing to do, students can pick up on that very quickly. So one thing I want to encourage all of us as leaders is focus on walking the walk consistently. I know I myself were challenged this week. Is my time in the Word what it needs to be? Because if you've been in church long enough, you know how to play the game. You know how to say all the right phrases. You know when to lift your hands, when to put the hands down. You know, yes, amen, praise God. You know how to go through the motions. But if we're not careful, students will call you out on that. Young people will call you out on that because God will send them to get your attention. So I think one thing that's critical as leaders, even on a Saturday afternoon, I believe God is reminding us, sometimes we got to get back to the basics of consistently walking the walk and making sure that our time in the Word, our time in prayer is the focus. And out of that comes ministry. Out of that comes the opportunity to serve. But if you're not being poured into, you have nothing to give out. So I think it's very critical that we focus on consistently walking the walk. And like my wife said, being authentic and true. I think one of the blessings I've had in ministry over the years is being able to mentor a young man in particular and tell my story of brokenness. And telling my story of coming from a single parent, dysfunctional household on the west side of Chicago, and telling of how divorce and domestic violence ravaged my household. But for the grace of God, I stand here today. So sometimes it's so tempting to display this polished, cleaned up version of yourself, but they need to see that you have issues too. Now, granted, God gives wisdom, you don't have to tell all your business, but they need to know that you're not exempt from the pressures of this world, that crisis comes to your household too.